Hello, this is Raymond from EMSNow, coming to you from Nepcon China in Shanghai. Today I'm joined by NK Chari. Welcome, Chari.
Thank you.
Chari is the Director of Marketing and Support Measurement Systems Division from the Electronics Measurement Group of Agilent Technologies.
Thank you.
Okay. Chari, contract manufacturers for high-end markets like automotive, medical, they are looking for cutting-edge test solutions, right? That means a high degree of customization, but they are also looking for cost savings as well.
Right.
So how do you marry these two requirements to meet their needs?
Right. So I think cost savings is a very interesting word to review. You know, ultimately the goal for us is to help reduce customers' costs rather than just look at the cost of capital gear. And we are really enabling that today. So for example, we had one of our customers who couldn't detect a defect before and it was going to the field. And think about the RMA cost which he was having later. And we could now detect that it was a bond wire defect on an IC which was creating problems which we could detect with the VTEP technology, and that helped the customer reduce his real costs. So overall, I think what we're trying to do is to marry the role of the technology which we are putting in place is to help reduce customers' costs by increasing their coverage, ensuring that they can find these defects much early in the process so that they don't create more costs for them in the later part of the process. So that's one big area. The second big area is really, our new test systems are improving throughput. So automatically, the new Series 5, 3070 Series 5 is 25% faster than before. And that really means that they have now more capacity compared to the older 3070 Series 5. And not only that, you can actually upgrade from their current system to the new system. So and there's a lot of compatibility built in. So we're trying to help customers manage their investment as they go forward. And finally, we have also introduced a lower cost platform, the i1000, which is doing extremely well, especially for customers who have not used an ICT before, and they've been on an MDA kind of platform. They're sort of upgrading themselves to an ICT and getting the better coverage overall. So overall, I think cost of test is really linked to the quality of the product which the customers are trying to. So higher quality manufacturers value this, I think.
And talking about ICT and some of the test technologies, boundary scan has grown in popularity. It's extended from board testing up to product design and development even. Do you think boundary scan is complementing ICT or is it replacing ICT? What are your views?
That's an interesting question. So basically, boundary scan evolved from ICT. So to an ICT engineer, there's a toolbox of all kinds of tests which they're having, and boundary scan is one of the tests. So if I want to test a board, I have to decide what are the test technologies which I can apply. So I do unpowered testing, I look for resistors, capacitors, I check for shorts and opens on the board, and I use vectorless test technologies. I can use silicon nail technology. So there are many technologies which the ICT toolbox.
Even flying probe as well.
Right. So I have these toolbox. It's a toolbox. When I take a 3070, it's a toolbox of many test technologies. And the test engineer decides which are the best test technologies they need to use. In today's boards, boundary scan is more widely used, but it was evolved from a 3070 environment. We were the inventors of boundary scan. And as it's evolved, customers have found the applicability of using boundary scan in design validation and in other areas like NPIs. But for board tests, at the final board test level, they continue to use it in the ICT environment. So they don't say, okay, I'm going to replace the whole ICT with a boundary scan test. It's not possible.
Because some boards are just not designed for boundary scan.
No, even if they're designed for boundary scan, not the whole board. You can never get 100% coverage of a board with boundary scan. It's not possible because it's a digital technology. So you have resistors, capacitors.
There's a lot of analog components.
A lot of analog components. A lot of small digital devices which are not boundary scan enabled. which you want to do just basic digital tests.
I guess you need a combination
of all these
both
tests
testing.
to make this work.
Right.
And so I think as it evolves, what I'm seeing is more and more boundary scan being used. So Agilent has really done a good job with it. We have a lot of boundary scan technology on the 3070, on the i1000, including marrying boundary scan with vectorless tests and putting the technology called CoverX10, which is now available on both the platforms. So we are sort of seeing that there'll be more and more applicability, and there'll be more embedded tests which will come into play.
Right.
So we'll keep adding these things into our toolbox for in-circuit test. And I do continue to see evolving needs for design validation, maybe repair for independent small stations. So it's a combination.
Right.
The customer
and
will have some choices
I guess
here.
the strength of Agilent is that you offer a whole spectrum of products to cover all aspects of test coverage.
Right, yes, that's the goal. The whole idea is how can I test the whole board effectively with the least possible cost and have the best quality of test so that things don't pass through to the field and
Could you just give us one or two highlights from this show at Nepcon in China? Like what are you showing at this show?
So what are we showing is we are showing 2-3 things. One is the i1000 with a handler. So it's a new application suite.
Right.
So we have a handler integrated on the i1000 for automation. So we are seeing a new trend in the market for more automation. Like you said, more customization, etc. So this handler works on the i1000. We also have 3070 with a handler, though we are not showing that on the stage, but we are showing a rack-mountable 3070.
Right.
So you can put it in a rack and make it applicable for other applications. So we are doing that at the same time, and then showing our higher speed 3070 full capability.
So at different price points as well, Agilent has this kind of offer.
This thing. Yeah.
Okay. Final question, Chari. As you know, cost of manufacturing is going up in China. Labor cost is perhaps just one aspect.
Right.
So many people are saying, it's the end of days for low-cost manufacturing in China. What are your views on that?
It's a good question. I think the jury is still out because I think the overall supply chain infrastructure, China is, there are no other countries matching China's infrastructure for overall activities. And I think the EMS companies and the ODM companies are actually taking action. They are seeing cost increases with labor. You can keep hearing Foxconn increasing salaries every other day.
But are they taking action in terms of factory capabilities, or are they just moving to lower?
They're doing both.
Costs? They are doing both.
Both.
Right.
So what they're doing is, I think they're moving to the western part of China, which we all are aware. So Foxconn has got sites, Quanta has got sites, Wistron has got sites. All these customers have gone to the west. At the same time, they're expanding their capabilities.
Right.
The EMS companies are doing that. They're adding more automation, adding more seamless manufacturing methodologies, which will enable them to improve their costs. At the same time, I think higher values added activities are also happening within the
aftermarket services.
Aftermarket services, maybe the whole test strategy, driving test development, and all that kind of activity is also happening now locally, which previously was maybe happening in the US and was getting transferred. Now all that is happening. So I think the jury is still out from that perspective. But what I see as the little longer term, I think the costs are equating, right, at overall level. I see more regionalization happen over the long term.
Because logistics cost is
Logistics
going
cost is now going to become a bigger play for these customers. So it will sort of follow maybe fast-moving consumer goods like Pepsi's and of the world, right? All that stuff is for the local market. You don't move cans of Pepsi around the world. You just do it locally.
Perhaps next time it's going to be built local.
Built local, right? So, and I'm already seeing that with automotive customers. Right. So you see that with all these customers have their local presence for the local market.
Right.
And that is, the volumes are good enough to justify that. And that is the right method, which I think will happen in the long term.
Thank you so much, Chari, for sharing your views.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Raymond. I appreciate this. Thank you.